Okay, hi guys. So I have a little interesting experiment today. I had some extra products sitting around and that I couldn't use. I'm doing my compliance check today and throwing out everything that's expired. So we are in the unique situation that we have Restylane and Lyft as well as Vitrase, which all of you know are quite expensive. So we probably don't get the opportunity to play around like this as much as we would like. And I did a first patch, which I'll show you when we finish this, what the results are after a little bit of time lapse. So what we're going to talk about today is Vitrase and how it breaks down the HA molecules. Vitrase is hyaluronidase. There's another brand called Hylenex, which is a different brand, different dilution ratios. So just so you're clear, today we're talking about Vitrase. Okay, it comes as 200 units per ml. So the breakdown ratio of that looks like 0.1 ml is 20 units, 0.05, 10 units. So for 50 units, we have 0.25 ml. And there are some good articles out there about how much Vitrase you should use to break down the products, and I will pan over to those in a little bit, but I more want to show you today, not necessarily to get into which is correct and what you should be doing, but more just to show you the effects, because I feel like we don't often get to actually see this, especially not out of the body. So here we go. So first I'm filming and doing this, so forgive me if it's a little bumpy. Okay, so we're gonna start with injecting each with 10 units. Okay, and on this side we have the Restylane and Lyft, so it's a little chunkier. On this side we have the Restylane. You can even see how they space out when they land. The Restylane is just a little bit looser. The molecule is finer. And then for Lyft, it has it's more cohesive, and the molecule's a little chunkier. You can even like start to see it. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started. This is 10 units of Vitrase on top of Lyft. If my needle wants to push. So for the initial, I'm just kind of putting it on top so you can see what that looks like. So pretty instantly starts to take effect, and then we'll do the same for the Restylane. See, it actually starts to break down the outer surface. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's 10 units each. All right, we're gonna do another 10 units each, and this time I'm gonna inject into the bleb. All right, so a little bit of an effect there, starting to work. Okay, for the Restylane. Perfect. All right. Interesting, right? Okay, let's do another 10. So now we're up to 30. Okay, and for the quantity of product, it was 0.1 ml of HA, which is with Lyft and Restylane both, it's a 20 milligram per ml of HA. Okay, so we've got 30 on the Lyft, and let's do 30 on the Restylane. Ooh, that was a good one. Okay, and also too, the Vitrase tends to work over an extended period of time. I don't like to re-inject within 2 weeks because I feel like I still have seen changes even after 2 weeks. Okay, and here we go. Obviously, if it's an emergency, we're going to adjust that. So we're at 40 units now for the Restylane and Lyft. still pretty cohesive, but you're not seeing the differentiation so much of the molecules. A little bit, but not as much. It's interesting, it's still pretty encapsulated though. Alright, so now let's do the 40 units for Restylane. Okay. Interesting. So they're still holding pretty well. Okay. And we're gonna go up to the 50. Okay, you can start to see a little expansion on that outer wall. It's not keeping quite as contained. A little deformity to the membrane there, which is good. And over here for the Restylane. Okay. So that's a total of 50 units of Vitrase for each, what comes out to a 0.25 ml, and we're breaking down 0.1 ml of Restylane and Restylane and Lyft. Okay, and so just to highlight a little bit about the Vitrase, just to go over some things. So you do need a separate consent, and it is an off-label use. So if you're a nurse practitioner mid-level, just be aware of that. Like I said, I'd like to give it at least 2 weeks before I re-inject. So just to give you guys a little bit of a reference point as far as a good resource for this. So I found an article on the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology, this month's guideline for use of hyaluronidase in aesthetic practice by Martin King, Cormac Convoy, and Emma Davis. So they actually come out with quite a few different things. So here's a little algorithm, and they reference hyaluronidase in their article. So just to keep that in mind, the dilution ratios are different, the units are a little different, but you can extrapolate. Okay, and then they also talk about recommended doses, and again, this is hyaluronidase, but still relative. So the consensus opinion is that 5 units of hyaluronidase will work to break down 0.1 ml. However, another article recommended 30 units to dissolve 0.1 and further showed no difference between the use of 20 to 40 units to degrade 0.2 mLs. So very interesting. Okay, and again, this is the article. It's available to download PDF, so I highly recommend checking into that. Seems like they've got a good list of other articles on the side as well. Okay, so back over here. We are at about 8 minutes since starting this video, so you can kind of see. And then I want to show you, what time is it? 33? So about 45 minutes ago, I did this first version. And again, this is Restylane and Restylane Lyft. So same thing. I think this was a little more. I wasn't quite as controlled on the base product. It might be 0.2 mLs of HA that I was trying to break down, and you could see the Restylane is progressing much more. But what's interesting is I started injecting, kind of outside without really injecting inside the bleb, and then once I started injecting inside the bleb, there still seems to be some product on top that's fully formed and just did not quite get the treatment. Here on the Lyft, it was more uniform, which is interesting. And it seems to be pretty well gelatinized. You can see a little bit of particle formation, and I have a bleb right behind it for a reference point. So I mean, that's a huge difference in breakdown. It's great. Same thing on the Restylane, you can see the difference. Huge. Okay, so when we recommend this for patients, when we're doing this, we typically massage. That's definitely part of the protocol. So I want to kind of agitate this a little bit so you can see what's going on there. I'm really curious to see how much of effect we get on the other little blebs sitting there. Ooh. But yeah, the product in the middle seems to be pretty well dissolve just a little bit, but I bet if you let that sit, it will continue to keep going. So yeah, I personally like the 50 unit per area kind of starting with. I'm not gonna lie, I'll go up from there to 100, 150 sometimes, just depending on the area, if it's concentrated or if it's spread out. But working with Vitrase has definitely been interesting, and it's a little difficult to kind of maneuver because the guidelines aren't very clear. But yeah, so I thought I would share this because I think it might actually be pretty helpful for other people to see, and just see the idea of playing around with it so you get a better idea of what's going on with the products when you start to dissolve them. So yeah. Alright guys, this has been fun. I will keep you updated